What up, perps? Kid Copious back in effect 2024. You know what we're going to do here. We're going to rep America, the center, common sense, freedom, and peace on earth. High five for you, buddies. All right, so let's get this thing popping. There we go. All right. All right, so we're going to start this off with the legendary Bronco here. He's got Winnie the Pooh there leading the American revolutionaries through TikTok, Free Palestine Now, Open the Borders, Trump is a dictator, USA sucks. And that's what we're facing on social media. And it comes from both sides. You know, one of the things that I can't stand is the fact that even though the left is really showing their allegiance, I guess you could say, to the far left, you know, you have people on the right doing the exact same thing. You know, and what we really need, like I always say, is we need it down the middle. We need to know what's really going on. You know, for me, the Biden corruption is not about going after somebody that I don't like. It's about that our president is corrupt. You know, when you look at these people in line here with their little signs, you know, Free Palestine Now. You know, Palestine is only going to be happy when Israel is no more. And that's just not in the cards. Israel doesn't say that they won't be happy until Palestine's destroyed. Right? Open the borders? To how? It already is. We're flooding in. We're going to see a little bit more of that. But the cost of that down the line, you know, these kids that are out there, these young people that are out there protesting some of these things, they're not looking down the line. They're not looking at how we're going to support this. You know, you think that the United States has unlimited money, and they simply don't. When it comes to things like illegal immigration, that's something that starts to affect cities and states more than the federal government. You know, look what's going on in places like New York and Chicago where they're just absolutely overwhelmed. Look at the border towns where they're overwhelmed. Where's the federal government? They're not doing much. Trump is a dictator. I take real big exception at that because whether you liked him or not as a person, I personally don't like him as a person. You know, I think he's interesting, but I don't think he's the greatest guy out there. But he was not a dictator. Biden is a dictator. The left is a bunch of dictators. Look at what's going on in California. Look how they're forcing us to live with their agenda. While they sit up in their little palaces, free from the worry of their consequences, we have to suffer them. That is a dictator. A dictator is somebody who rules with authoritarian control and puts all the responsibility and all the consequences on the so-called peasants. And that's what we're seeing. The green agenda is nothing more than they're going to blow a bunch of money on their agenda, whether we can live with it or not. And USA sucks. Again, I don't know of any country on this planet that has given more opportunities to more people, more diversity than the United States. All right? I just don't see it. We're speaking of illegal immigration. Fox News recently released a video where migrants were streaming through a hole that had been cut by the cartels. The smugglers appear in the gap, clapping at the illegal immigrants to hurry up before they return to Mexico. Cartels are making money off of our border policies. And they're streaming across, you know, interesting. It brings it up when we're talking about how illegal immigration affects towns. Lukeville, Arizona. Never heard of it. Never heard of it. But yet they have to take in this flood of immigrants. And quite frankly, we know. Come on. We already know. They're not necessarily good people. Recently, just here in California, we had a woman who was attacked while walking her baby by an illegal immigrant. We had another woman in Long Beach who was sexually assaulted by an illegal immigrant. I'm not saying that's all that's coming across the border. That would be ridiculous. But the truth of the matter is is that there are people who are coming across the border who have ill intentions. That's just it. Not all of them are coming over here to work and contribute. Look what's going on in New York, where they're complaining about the food they're being given. They're in this country illegally, fleeing a bad piece of shit country. They get here and we try to feed them and they say, we don't want that food. The fuck? Seriously. December, 300,000 migrants came across. In addition to more than 2.4 million encounters in the fiscal year 2023. What percentage of them are going to get on and remain on public assistance? And meanwhile, they'll work jobs. They'll work under the counter. They won't pay their taxes and continue to collect the welfare of the United States. And I'm not saying all of them. That would be ridiculous. But the percentages, 50%, we're still looking at 1 million people added that are only going to cause trouble. Sure, maybe the number's 10%. I don't know. But those people are going to have to be paid for. And that's a year in and year out type of thing. And every year, we're getting the same amount of people coming across. Nothing's being done. And the reason nothing's being done and the reason why people say the border's open is because this administration has made it perfectly clear that we will work with them to get them what they want, which is U.S. citizenship. They've got the young people out there saying that everybody has a right to immigrate to the United States. They don't. They simply don't. And if we continue on this path, the consequences are going to be grave. In lighter news, better news, I guess you could say, Claudine Gay resigned from the Harvard presidency. You know, she's the one who seems to think that it's okay to hate Jews because Jews are the oppressor. They're not. They're not the oppressor, all right? Palestine and their leaders, Hamas, made it very clear they want Israel gone. But anyhow, she was basically blaming it on racism and, you know, accusations of plagiarism. So she gives a tearful resignation speech entitled Gettysburg Address. Hamas loses 2 leaders in one day. At first I thought that was Ted Cruz. But no, that was some Hamas asshole. He was like a liaison with Hezbollah. And he was taken out. The Israelis tracked him down and drone striked his ass. They sent him what they said was a kamikaze drone. Wow, what a world we live in. We have kamikaze drones now. That's crazy. These are 2 people who will not be missed. Harvard's president, this one really got me because this shows you the left-wing bias in the media. Harvard, this is from the Associated Press, somebody I thought we could trust. Harvard's president's resignation highlights new conservative weapon against colleges, plagiarism. Yeah, let that soak in for a second. So they're saying that conservatives are going to start using plagiarism as a way to remove their enemies. Much like the left uses innuendo and racism and equity and DEI and all that bullshit as their weapon. The new conservative weapon is plagiarism. Really? Okay. Maybe the fact that she could not come out against violence against Jewish students, maybe that's all it is. Maybe the plagiarism is a great little cover story. Either way, just glad she's gone. One of the reasons why I spend so much damn time right now attacking essentially the party called the Democrats is because they're listening to the left-wing extremists. Extremists, right-wing, left-wing, doesn't matter which one, they often have goals that are catastrophic in nature. The cause seems okay? Like the LA Times, you know, it's one thing like trying to live without fossil fuels, trying to reduce our dependency on fossil fuels. That's great. But their end result is a catastrophe. The LA Times predicts doomsday unless we pursue a world without fossil fuels. The Secretary General of the United States agrees, so do many politicians and environmentalists. PragerU raises the question, is such a world possible, and is it desirable? And we're going to answer both of them right here. You know, you can disagree with Prager. You see, I'm the type of person, I'll be honest with you, I disagree with some of the stuff that Matt Walsh says on his show. Okay, I disagree with Candace Owens. I disagree with PragerU. All right, they are a bit to the right, but no matter which side it's on, if they're right, they're right. And in this case, they're right. 80% of our world's energy comes from oil, gas, natural gas, and coal. Okay, that's not good. It's not great. We can all agree on that. Maybe we should reduce our dependency on that. But the problem is that offsets the cost of other things. Because other things come from petrochemicals, asphalt. No oil, no asphalt. No asphalt, no paved roads. See, it starts off with no oil, but it ends up with no paved roads. You want to drive your electric vehicle on dirt? You go right ahead. Let's look at some other things. The paint, the flooring beneath your feet, the blinds, the tube that holds toothpaste, the detergent you use, plastic containers for medicine, vitamins, your computer screen, your cell phone, your keyboard, your mouse pad, the coating around the cords that charge your phone, the casing for your car battery, the buttons on your shirt. Yep, that's all fossil fuels. Specifically plastic, which is derived from fossil fuels. See, that's the problem. Are we going to remove all those things? We as humans can live without plastic. We know this. But can we live as well? No. Now we're moving into food production, which is linked to fossil fuels, and we'll see why here. In 1950, more than 60% of the world's population was undernourished. By 2019, it was down to less than 9%, despite the fact that there are three times as many people. So as our population rose, our ability to feed those people also rose. And why is that? Herbicides, insecticides, fungicides, fertilizers, which depend on petroleum products, specifically natural gas. Just looking at fertilizer options, okay? Everything we used to do was basically animal shit, okay? That smell that you hear when your neighbor, the smell you hear. Wow. That smell you smell when your neighbor's lawns are getting fertilized. That's manure. But by using a process called the Haber-Bosch process, natural gas could be used to produce ammonia, which is a critical catalyst in plant growth. It's also what makes fertilizer highly explosive. But look how that dramatically changed crop yields. In the 1920s, a farmer could produce less than 2 tons of corn per hectare. Yeah, Red Bull and pronunciation doesn't work well. I'm starting to learn that. Yet today, we could produce 11 tons on that same footage. Combine that with improvements in farm equipment, powered once again by fossil fuels, the results are astonishing. The human labor required to harvest a kilogram of wheat has declined over the past 2 centuries, from 10 minutes to 2 seconds. That's dramatic improvements brought along by fossil fuels. So again, we're starting to see if we, and yes, okay, before, nobody ever comments, but if anybody was about to comment, yeah, I get it. Some of this stuff could be powered by electricity that's generated by solar and blah, 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 okay? If you think a world powered entirely by electricity is safe in any way, shape, or form, you know nothing about electricity. Even renewable energy, the presumable antidote to fossil fuels, is completely dependent on fossil fuels. Wind turbines, solar panels, fiberglass, plastics, other materials derived from petroleum. I just went right into a word I can't pronounce, didn't I? Right into it. A myriad. Like so many industries, there's no renewable energy without fossil fuel energy. We're going to see a great example of that in a minute. Without fossil fuels, though, much of the world's population would starve to death in a year. It's just what works. As technology moves forward, we will get closer and closer to green energy. We have tried to leapfrog decades, and it's not working. And what makes it even worse is now they're trying to blame things like beef production on high methane levels from cow farts. See, that's the insanity of this. Wind and solar are inherently intermittent. There has to be a source of fossil fuel energy as a backup. Unless, of course, you're lucky enough to have a nuclear power plant in your neighborhood. Let's put it this way. If you're having surgery, you want the hospital to have reliable power. Fossil fuels are not just about driving your car and heating your home. Fossil fuels are everywhere and in everything. And when we cut down the petroleum producers' ability to sell fuel, they're going to raise their costs everywhere else. Just think about it for a second. If the cost of plastics goes up, how is that going to affect every single one of us? Everything will be more expensive. That's just the way it is. Are we going to start keeping our precious medicines in what? Paper? How's that going to work? Are all of the syringes going to be made out of glass with metal, like the old-timey big glass ones with the big metal plunger on top that scare the shit out of you? Is that what we're going to go backwards to? Imagine the cost when you start talking about one of the big hot button costs right now in America because of the high levels of diabetes. Something around 20% of our population has diabetes or is close to diabetes. What's the cost of their treatment going to go through when they're no longer being able to buy plastic syringes? See, they're demanding something that is undoable. End oil now, stop oil now, all that bullshit. Like they say right there in that article, unless, of course, you're lucky enough to have a nuclear power plant. I've said this before. If you're not discussing nuclear, then you're not discussing green. Wind and solar, oh man. I mean, I can't imagine how you're going to heat your homes with solar when there's no sun. And when you have wind that's too high, that'll just snap. There's videos out there of windmills just going because they start spinning too fast. That's the kind of shit that happens. Those are not acceptable backups. Nuclear is the only thing that fills that gap. If you don't want to use fossil fuels to power things in your town, and you don't want fossil fuels to be a backup, but you're not going to talk about nuclear, what are you talking about? Batteries? Oh, how big are these batteries going to be, and what kind of effect will that have on the environment? The world the LA Times wants, a world without fossil fuels, won't prevent doomsday. It'll cause it. Worldwide poverty, mass starvation, and the end of civilization as you know it. If you want to live like the Flintstones and spend your life doing backbreaking labor from dawn to dusk just to feed yourself, be our guest. We'll take our chances with fossil fuels. Boom. Do you want to go back to subsistence farming? If you like the world the way it is right now, then you have to come to terms with the fact that you need fossil fuels. And let's move on from there. Let's understand that moving forward, we're going to try to progress to a cleaner way of living. But their way is to shut down all the oil rigs. It's not going to work. And here's a great example of how it doesn't work. This is from the Washington Examiner. Pay no mind to the diesel behind your EV charging station. This doesn't apply to every charging station. In Coalinga, California, the Harris Ranch Tesla supercharger contains 98 charging bays that can charge your Tesla up to 80% in 20 minutes. Awesome. The only problem is it's too large to run on anything other than diesel generators that sit behind a nearby Shell gas station. So you're charging your green vehicle using diesel. Now, like I said, this doesn't cover all of them, but it shows you the limitations of solar and wind. It shows you that you need to have the diesel as a backup. And we have to pursue new sources of fossil fuels. Hey, if we were getting close to running out, I bet you everybody would be rushing to nuclear. And then I could see the urgency. I could see all the money being dumped into it. We have an administration right now in California and in other states and in the United States that is hell-bent on spending all of the money on green right now. What about all the other problems? What about the money that we're going to need for all of the migrants that have come in? The millions and millions. I mean, in 1 year, 2.3. So in Biden's 3 years now, what's nearly at least 6 million migrants have come across the border. Oh. But they're going to spend money on charging stations. Yeah, it's an outrageous thing to think about. Your electric car is being powered by evil, dirty diesel. What's next? Are electric car batteries produced through a process that pollutes air and water and further destroys the environment? Yeah, they are. This article really sums it up, the never-ending hypocrisy of climate change doomers and their solutions. See, it's about us buying more expensive, less reliable cars, paying more to heat our homes, paying more, period, for anything having to do with electricity, all to further a goal that can never be reached. It should never even be allowed to be reached. It's crazy. Speaking of illegal immigrants, after national outrage over California providing billions of dollars in taxpayer-funded health care to illegal immigrants, one state legislator introduced a bill to revoke all taxpayer funding for health care for illegal immigrants. We're spending about $4 billion. The state is facing a $68 billion budget deficit for 2024-2025 fiscal year. Holy crap. That is a lot of money. That is a lot of money. In fact, I wish I should have done it beforehand, but I'm going to put up here like what $68 billion runs around the country and around the world. I bet you at least one state has who spends just what we're short. And why? Because they took taxpayer dollars and gave them to illegal immigrants. And this whole obsession of California is to provide all of these subsidies through their tax dollars is hurting us in a lot of ways. Health insurance in California increased by 9.6% in 1 year. In 1 year. So for like every $100 you were spending another $9.60 this year. That's the kind of shit that slowly but surely eats away at people's ability to have any sort of life. It's also led to major doctor and healthcare staffing shortages. Due to low reimbursement rates for Medi-Cal and the rising cost of labor and living, many doctors don't even accept Medi-Cal now, leading to a doctor shortage among the free healthcare people. They're raising the minimum wage for healthcare workers to $25. That alone is going to cost the state another $4 billion. So that's $8 billion at least that California is going to spend because of their far left initiatives. Now, I sort of agree that healthcare workers do deserve more money, maybe even $25 an hour. I see people who help the developmentally challenged. I think they deserve a lot of money. Maybe not everybody that falls under healthcare workers is up to that. But look, if you're going to spend $4 billion on illegal immigrants or healthcare workers, I'd rather see it go to the healthcare workers. Because that makes some sense. But anyhow, they've destroyed that. Really quick, we'll touch on the Epstein thing. In the same sentence, NBC reports that Bill Clinton and Donald Trump were mentioned, but conveniently failed to mention that Trump was exonerated while Clinton was said to like little girls. This is from some transcript from the trials. Did Jeffrey ever talk to you about Bill Clinton? He said one time that Clinton liked them young, referring to girls. Okay. What are we supposed to make of this? There are a lot of scummy people in this world. If they have evidence that certain people paid Epstein for these girls, let's go after them. If not, the pedophiles got away with it. That's what we have to accept, and we have to move on. It's ridiculous. This shit I didn't even pay attention to the Aaron Rodgers, Jimmy Kimmel thing, but apparently that's another Epstein file link. This one, I just bring it up because I found it so utterly fascinating. Israeli TV anchor who carried gun during live newsroom broadcast sparks viral social media storm. Yeah. When I hear the words viral social media storm, I just want to leave. But yeah, there she is, Lintel Shemesh. She's carrying a gun. One of the reasons why I bring this up is because I mentioned earlier, there were some attacks in Long Beach on women. Here in California, you can't even carry a collapsible baton because that's only used to attack people. That's why we can't carry anything, because the state of California views any sort of self-defense weapon as something that somebody's going to only carry to do wrong. Because California, the government here, does not believe in self-defense. They just seemingly don't. Why couldn't somebody carry a collapsible baton for protection? Oh, because then somebody could carry it to commit. Yeah, you're right. You got it absolutely right, California. Criminals will always break the law. So only punish law-abiding citizens. That's what they do. They make it a pain in the ass to buy ammunition in California. Do you think the criminals are paying any attention to that? No. Do you think the criminals are paying attention to any of the laws? No. During the Wild Wild West, there were not as many shootings as most people think, because everybody knew that everybody was armed. If you pulled out your gun, you were just as likely to get shot. That's the world. That's what our world is generating into. Okay? We are creating a situation where every day, especially here in California, our citizens are in danger. And we're not allowed to do anything about it. And when they do catch the people, they just let them out. Over there, they got to worry about terrorists. I think it's time that we start looking at some of our problems, the street zombies and the cartels, as the terrorist organizations, and start taking action. It's harsh, but it's what needs to be done. Really quickly, found this right at the last minute. After the age of 65, you should be 100% tax exempt. You have already more than paid your dues. The reason I found it interesting was because I had thought about that with property tax. You know, one of the things that I would propose is that after the age of 65, or when you've officially retired and you meet certain other parameters such as income or, you know, things like that, the elderly should be free from property taxes. If you've paid off your home, you should be allowed to live in it. And that's it. Losing your home to property taxes is just criminal. And what makes it even more criminal, especially here in a place like California, is what they're going to do with those taxes. That's your home. That's where you plan on spending your last days. And to have to pay property taxes under the threat of losing your house, that's not right. That is just simply not right. If you own your home and your retirement is only going to provide you X amount of dollars, then you shouldn't have to pay property taxes. I don't want to come on here and just complain. I want to come on and provide some solutions. We talked about nuclear. We talked about tightening up the border. And now we're talking about the elderly not having to pay property taxes. We need to think about the things that are going to be important to the average, everyday American. This is America. We are not the world. Despite what that song might say, we are the world. We're not. We're America. We're California. And we need to start looking out for those people. We need to start looking out for the people who are just trying to get through a day as honestly and as upright as possible. And stop tilting everything to the rich, the poor, the illegal, the criminal. That's what needs to change. I'm Kid Copious, Purple State Party, and so are you. Peace, y'all. Love one another and dance it out.